My son turned his back on me, called me a burden, and sent me to a nursing home. So I gave him a lesson he'll never forget. I was standing in the lobby of Sunset Manor Nursing Home, holding my phone with steady hands, when the call that changed everything came through. My son Adam was on the other end, his voice shaking like a leaf. "Mom, please, I need your help. I'm losing everything. My marriage, my job, my house, everything's falling apart, and I don't know what to do." Now, 6 months ago, I would have dropped everything and rushed to save him, but not today. Today I looked around at the place he abandoned me to and said these exact words. "You called me a burden, Adam. Now you'll learn what that really means." There was this long silence, and then he asked, confused, "Mom, where are you? You sound different." "I'm in the nursing home, Adam. The one where you left me to rot." You see, family betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from the child you sacrificed everything for. And what my son didn't know was that abandoning me would become the biggest mistake of his life. But this story doesn't start with that phone call. It starts 6 months earlier, when the son I gave my whole life to broke my heart in ways I never imagined possible. Welcome back to Auntie Dorothy's Stories. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Your support truly encourages me to continue sharing these incredible tales with you. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love hearing from my sweethearts around the world. My name is Martha Wilson, and I'm 78 years old. For 45 years, I was a registered nurse, working double shifts to support my son Adam after his father walked out on us when Adam was just 7. You want to know about parental sacrifice? Let me paint you a picture. I remember selling my grandmother's pearl necklace, the only valuable thing I owned, to pay for Adam's college textbooks. I remember skipping meals so he could have lunch money, telling him I wasn't hungry when my stomach was growling so loud I was embarrassed. I remember working Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, every holiday, every weekend, so I could afford his baseball equipment, his school trips, his dreams. My modest little house was like a shrine to Adam's achievements. His diplomas covered my living room walls. His high school football trophies lined my mantelpiece. Photos of his wedding, his kids, his promotion ceremonies, they filled every surface. Meanwhile, Adam became this successful marketing executive, living in his fancy suburban house with his wife Sarah and their 2 teenage children. But success changed him. Every time I called, I could hear the irritation in his voice. "I'm busy, Mom. Can this wait?" And Sarah, oh Sarah, she'd roll her eyes every time my name came up. I could hear it in her voice during those brief phone conversations. "She calls every day, Adam. It's exhausting." Then came that Tuesday in March, when everything changed. I was grocery shopping at the Kroger I'd been going to for 30 years when suddenly the world started spinning. Next thing I knew, I was lying on the cold linoleum floor with concerned faces looking down at me. The paramedics said I fainted from dehydration and stress. They called Adam from the hospital. 3 hours later, 3 whole hours, he finally showed up, and the first words out of his mouth weren't, "Are you okay, Mom?" They were, "Mom, you can't keep scaring us like this." The doctor explained it was nothing serious. She just needs rest and someone to check on her regularly. Maybe some help with groceries and medications. I was sitting there in that hospital bed, feeling vulnerable and scared, and I said, "I'm sorry I worried you, honey. I'll be more careful." But Adam wasn't listening to my apology. He was already planning my future without me. "We need to talk about your living situation," he said, checking his watch like he had somewhere more important to be. A week later, he invited me to dinner at his house. I was so excited, thinking maybe this health scare had reminded him how precious family time is. I dressed up nice, brought homemade cookies for the grandchildren I barely got to see anymore. The moment I walked into that house, I felt the tension. Sarah's smile was as fake as her designer handbag, and she started right in with these passive-aggressive comments. "Martha, you really shouldn't be driving at your age. It's dangerous." Then Adam launched into what was obviously a rehearsed speech. "Mom, we've been thinking. You're getting older, and living alone isn't safe anymore." My heart jumped with hope. Was he finally going to ask me to move in? I could help with the children, cook those family dinners I'd been dreaming about. "Are you asking me to move in?" I'd love to help with the kids, teach them my recipes, be there when they get home from school. No, Mom? He cut me off like I was some door-to-door salesman. We found a nice nursing home, Sunset Manor. It's clean, it's safe, and they have activities. It's for the best. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. But honey, I'm fine. The doctor said I just needed to take it easy. I can do that at home. I've been taking care of myself for 78 years. That's when Adam's frustration boiled over, and he said the words that still echo in my mind every single day. You're becoming a burden, Mom. We can't constantly worry about you. We have our own lives to live. The word burden hung in that kitchen air like smoke from a fire. A burden. After 45 years of sacrifice, after giving up every dream I ever had for myself, after working my fingers to the bone to give him every opportunity in life, I had become a burden. Sarah jumped in to support her husband, her voice dripping with false sympathy. It's really for the best, Martha. You'll make friends there. You'll have people to take care of you. I sat there in stunned silence, watching my son and his wife plan my exile like they were discussing vacation destinations. Finally, I whispered, "A burden?" Adam had the decency to look uncomfortable for about 2 seconds. I didn't mean it like that, but yes, we have our own responsibilities. What Martha didn't know was that this abandonment would become Adam's greatest mistake. If you think Martha deserved better than this treatment, hit that like button right now. And if you're loving this story of resilience and redemption, make sure to subscribe, because you won't believe what happens next. Have you ever felt taken for granted by family? Share your story in the comments below. Moving day came 2 weeks later, and it was the most heartbreaking day of my life. I packed my entire existence into cardboard boxes, 30 years of memories reduced to whatever could fit in the back of a moving truck. I found photo albums filled with pictures of Adam as a baby, as a little boy, letters he wrote me from summer camp saying, "I love you, Mommy. You're the best mom in the whole world." When Adam arrived with that moving truck, he was all business. No emotion, no sentimentality, just, "Ready? We need to get this done." The drive to Sunset Manor was the longest 20 minutes of my life. He spent the whole time on his phone, talking to some clients about marketing strategies, while I watched my old neighborhood disappear through the passenger window. Sunset Manor was nice enough. Clean hallways, cheerful decorations, that antiseptic smell that reminded me of my nursing days. But it wasn't home. When we got to my room, Adam was already checking his watch. "See? It's nice here, Mom. You'll make friends. The staff seems friendly." He gave me a quick hug goodbye and said, "I'll call you soon." He didn't. In fact, that first week, I didn't hear from him at all. The isolation hit me like a physical weight. I'd sit in the dining room surrounded by strangers who'd already formed their little groups, their established friendships. I was the new girl at 78, trying to figure out where I fit in. There was Ruth Chen, 85 years old, a retired teacher with the sharpest wit you ever heard. And Frank Rodriguez, 82, a gentle widowed veteran who noticed everything but said little. They both tried to include me in conversations, but I was still in shock. I'd respond politely but distantly, still waiting for Adam to call, still believing this was temporary, that he'd come to his senses and take me home. The first visitor's day was torture. I watched other residents light up as their families arrived, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, filling the common areas with laughter and love. I sat by the window, watching the parking lot, checking my phone every 5 minutes. Adam didn't come. He didn't even call. That's when I overheard 2 residents talking in the hallway. "That's Martha Wilson. Poor thing. Her son dumped her here and disappeared. We haven't seen hide nor hair of him since." I went to my room that night and cried harder than I had since my husband's funeral. I was mourning the death of the relationship I thought I had with my son, mourning the mother I used to be, mourning the life I'd been forced to leave behind. But Ruth Chen wasn't having any of my self-pity. She knocked on my door the next morning and said, "Honey, you can let this break you, or you can show that boy what he lost, your choice." But I'll tell you right now, I didn't survive raising 5 kids and teaching 8th grade for 40 years to watch a perfectly good woman waste away over an ungrateful child. Something about her no-nonsense attitude reminded me of who I used to be. I made a decision that morning. I refused to wither away. I refused to let Adam's abandonment be the end of my story. I started small. I joined the physical therapy sessions with Dr. Patricia Hayes, a wonderful woman in her 50s who saw something in me that I'd forgotten existed. Martha, you're stronger than you think. Your nursing background, your life experience, you have so much to offer. Day by day, I started walking a little further, standing a little straighter, speaking up a little more. I began sharing stories from my nursing days during afternoon tea, and other residents gathered around to listen. I helped Mrs. Patterson with her medication schedule. I taught Mr. Johnson's granddaughter how to braid hair during visiting hours. The director, James Morrison, noticed my involvement and asked if I'd consider volunteering as an activity coordinator. Martha, you have a gift. The residents respond to you. You bring out their best stories, their forgotten talents. For the first time in months, I felt useful again. I organized game nights, shared cooking tips, started a reminiscence group where we'd tell stories from our younger days. Ruth taught me to paint watercolors, and Frank shared tales from his time in the service. Slowly, these strangers became my chosen family. 6 months passed, and Adam's broken promises piled up like unpaid bills. He missed my birthday. Not even a card. Christmas came and went with a generic phone call that lasted exactly 4 minutes. Other residents' families visited every week, sometimes twice a week. I stopped counting the days between Adam's calls. One evening, I was sitting with Ruth and Frank, laughing at one of Ruth's stories about her teaching days, when I had a revelation. I spent 45 years living for him, I said. Now I'm living for me. Ruth raised her coffee cup in a toast. About damn time. But while I was discovering my independence and building new relationships, dramatic irony was playing out in Adam's life. His world was starting to crumble in ways he never expected. Because karma, you see, has a way of coming full circle. If Martha's transformation is inspiring you, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens when Adam's perfect life falls apart. What would you do in Martha's shoes? Would you forgive and help, or set boundaries? Let me know in the comments. While I was thriving at Sunset Manor, building genuine friendships and rediscovering my independence, Adam's picture-perfect life was imploding. His marriage to Sarah, which had always been more about status than love, finally cracked under the pressure of his selfishness. Sarah had been having an affair with her personal trainer for months, and when Adam found out, the divorce proceedings turned nasty fast. He lost half of everything: the house, the savings, the investment portfolio he was so proud of. His kids, who barely knew him anyway because he was always working, chose to live with Sarah. Suddenly, the man who called his own mother a burden was experiencing abandonment firsthand. The stress affected his work performance. He lost a major client, missed important deadlines, and his boss started questioning his commitment. Finally, they let him go. 45 years old, divorced, unemployed, and alone in an empty house, Adam was getting a taste of the isolation he'd forced on me. It was a Tuesday night in September when my phone rang at 11:47 p.m. I was reading in bed, enjoying a romance novel Ruth had recommended, when I saw Adam's name on my caller ID. For a moment, I almost didn't answer. Then curiosity got the better of me. "Mom, please, I need your help." His voice was breaking, desperate in a way I'd never heard before. "I'm losing everything. My marriage is over, I lost my job, I'm about to lose the house, I don't know what to do." The old Martha would have immediately asked, "What do you need, honey? How can I help?" But I wasn't the old Martha anymore. 6 months of abandonment had changed me, strengthened me, taught me my own worth. "Adam, it's been 6 months since you abandoned me here." "I didn't abandon you, Mom. I visit." "You visited twice, for 20 minutes each time. You missed my birthday. You missed Christmas dinner. You've called exactly 4 times in 6 months." There was silence on the other end, and I could picture him realizing he couldn't argue with facts. "Mom, I need money. I need somewhere to stay until I get back on my feet. Sarah's lawyer is trying to take everything." Here was my moment of poetic justice. My son, who had called me a burden, was now begging for help from the woman he'd discarded. "Come to Sunset Manor tomorrow, Adam. We'll talk face to face." "Mom, I don't have time to drive out there." "Can't you just—" "You had time to call me a burden. You had time to pack my life into boxes. Now you'll make time to face what you've done. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., or this conversation is over." The next day, I prepared myself mentally with help from Ruth and Frank. Ruth said, "Give him both barrels, honey. He needs to hear every word." Frank, in his gentle way, added, "You're not the same woman who arrived here broken. Show him who you've become." When Adam walked into Sunset Manor that afternoon, I could see the shock on his face. He was expecting the frail, grateful mother he'd left behind. Instead, he found me confident, well-dressed, surrounded by friends who respected and loved me. I was leading a watercolor painting class when he arrived, and the residents were hanging on my every word as I shared techniques I'd learned from Ruth. James Morrison greeted Adam in the lobby. "You must be Martha's son. Your mother is remarkable. She's transformed this place. The residents adore her, and she's become one of our most valuable volunteers." Adam looked confused, like he'd walked into the wrong building. "Mom, you look different." "I am different, Adam. Abandonment has a way of changing people." We went to my room for privacy, and I could see him taking in the photos on my dresser. Pictures of me with Ruth and Frank, group photos from our activities, artwork I'd created in painting class. This wasn't the sad, lonely existence he'd imagined for me. "Adam, sit down. We need to have a conversation we should have had 6 months ago." He started to speak, but I held up my hand. "No, you called this meeting because you need something. But before I give you anything, you're going to listen to what I have to say." I took a deep breath and said words I'd been rehearsing for months. "You called me a burden and threw me away like garbage. You took the woman who sacrificed everything for you and discarded her when she became inconvenient. Mom, I thought it was best for you. Best for you, Adam. Everything you've ever done has been best for you. Let me remind you what your burden did for you." And then I listed every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dollar I'd spent on his dreams instead of my own. I worked 2 jobs to pay for your college. I sold my engagement ring, the only thing I had left of your father, to buy your first car. I gave up dating because you said my boyfriends were trying to replace Dad. I spent my entire adult life making sure you had everything you needed, and the moment I needed something from you, I became a burden. Adam was crying now, really crying, and for the first time in months, I saw glimpses of the little boy I'd raised. Mom, I'm sorry. I was selfish. I was wrong. I should have never called you that word. Sorry isn't enough, Adam. You have to prove you understand what family really means. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where Frank and I took our evening walks. I won't give you money. I won't solve your problems. Not until you prove you understand family respect. What can I do to make this right? Start by getting to know the woman I've become, not the mother you took for granted. Come here every week, not for 20 minutes, but for real visits. Meet my friends. Participate in our activities. Show me that I matter to you as a person, not just as a solution to your problems. Will Adam prove he's capable of change, or has Martha lost her son forever? This story is about to take an incredible turn. Hit subscribe if you want to see whether Adam can truly change. And don't forget to like this video if you're rooting for Martha. Do you think Martha is being too harsh? Or is this exactly the lesson Adam needs to learn? Share your thoughts below. 3 months later, something miraculous happened. Adam kept his word. Every Saturday at 2 p.m., he'd walk through those doors at Sunset Manor, and it wasn't the rushed, obligatory visits from before. He'd spend the whole afternoon with me, really listening, really engaging. The first few visits were awkward. He didn't know how to talk to me as a person, instead of just checking items off his duty as a son list. But Ruth and Frank welcomed him with open arms, and gradually, Adam began to see me through their eyes. Not as his burden of a mother, but as Martha, the woman who organized the best game nights, who could make anyone laugh with stories from her nursing days, who'd become the heart of our little community. Frank taught Adam to play chess, and during those quiet games, Adam started opening up about his mistakes, his regrets, his fears about being the kind of father to his own children that he'd been to me. Ruth, with her teacher's wisdom, helped him understand that respect isn't something you give when it's convenient. It's something you live every day. One Saturday, Adam brought his children, my grandchildren, for their first real visit. Not the awkward, rushed stops from before, but a genuine afternoon where we baked cookies in the Manor's kitchen, and I finally got to hear about their dreams, their struggles, their lives. Watching Adam with his kids that day, I saw him trying to model the kind of attention and care he'd failed to show me. The transformation wasn't just in Adam, though. I continued growing too. My romance with Frank blossomed naturally. Two people who'd found companionship in their golden years. I became head of resident activities, organizing events that brought families together, teaching cooking classes, helping other families navigate difficult conversations about aging and care. My watercolor paintings were displayed in the Manor lobby, and I was invited to speak at other facilities about finding purpose in later life. I realized that Adam's abandonment, as painful as it was, had forced me to discover parts of myself I'd buried under decades of self-sacrifice. One evening, as Frank and I sat in the garden watching the sunset, he said, "Martha, you saved that boy by saving yourself first." The final test came when Adam's financial situation improved. He found a new job, settled the divorce, and bought a modest apartment. The old Adam would have stopped visiting once his crisis passed, but this Adam had learned what I'd been trying to teach him all along. Family isn't about convenience or obligation. It's about genuine care and respect. On a warm Sunday in December, Adam organized something that brought tears to my eyes. He arranged a multi-generational dinner right there in Sunset Manor's dining room. His children, Ruth and Frank, James Morrison, Dr. Hayes, and several other residents I'd grown close to. My chosen family and my blood family coming together for the first time. Watching my grandson help Frank with his walker, seeing my granddaughter show Ruth photos on her phone, observing Adam listening intently as James shared stories about the changes I'd brought to the manor. That's when I knew the lesson had truly taken hold. During dinner, Adam stood up and said something that made everyone in that room fall silent. "I want to thank my mother for teaching me the hardest lesson of my life. When I called her a burden, I lost the most important person in my world. But she didn't just forgive me. She showed me how to become worthy of forgiveness." After everyone left that night, Adam stayed to help clean up. As we worked together in the kitchen, he said, "Mom, I understand now why you wouldn't just give me money when I was desperate. You were teaching me that relationships can't be rebuilt with quick fixes. I was teaching you that love without respect is just obligation, honey, and I was teaching myself that I deserve better than that. You do deserve better. You always did. Sometimes saving yourself is exactly what saves everyone else." I didn't set out to teach my son a lesson when he abandoned me at Sunset Manor. I set out to survive, to rebuild my sense of worth, to create a life that had meaning beyond sacrifice. But in the process of rediscovering myself, I gave Adam the gift of discovering what real love looks like. Not the possessive, demanding kind, but the kind that sees people as they truly are and values them accordingly. Today I'm still at Sunset Manor, but not because I have to be. I stay because this is my community, my chosen family, my home. Adam visits every week, and our relationship is stronger than it's ever been because it's built on mutual respect instead of guilt and obligation. My grandchildren know their grandmother now, really know me, and I'm teaching them the same thing I finally taught their father, that every person, regardless of age, has value beyond what they can provide for others. Frank and I are planning a small wedding ceremony here at the manor next spring. Ruth is making me a quilt for our new shared room. And Adam? He's learned to see aging not as a burden to be managed, but as a stage of life to be honored and celebrated. The greatest lesson in all of this isn't about forgiveness or family reconciliation, though those things matter. It's about understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept treatment that diminishes your worth. Sometimes tough love means loving yourself enough to demand better, even from the people you love most. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to understand the true value of family. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about resilience, redemption, and the power of knowing your worth. And remember, you're never too old to start a new chapter of your life. What's the most important lesson you've learned about family relationships? Share your wisdom in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.